Howdy folks, I'm making another video with this front-facing camera having the live video focus effect. My hair is a mess as usual. Doesn't seem to matter what I do with it. Ugh. Okay, anyway, let's see what the background looks like blurred. There's another effect that really drastically blurs out the background. This one is more of like a modest kind of bokeh effect. It's pretty much what you would typically see with majority of professional cameras that blur out the background. So this one just kind of does that. It's just kind of a neutral bokeh effect. This is what it looks like. My face is crystal clear, but the background is consistently blurred even if I move the damn camera around. Walking around, and as I was talking about in the previous video about having 12 and especially 16 gigabytes of RAM on your phone is just completely overkill. Oh, but yeah, it really does go to show, like, this phone does have 12 gigabytes of RAM. I saw the international version of the Galaxy S20 had 8 gigs of RAM. Why? You're paying the same price for 4 gigabytes less of RAM, which is quite a big of a difference, and you're getting the slightly crappier Exynos processor. But that's if you get the international version. You know, if you're like in Europe or whatever where they sell the international version, I feel bad for those people that buy that version of the phone, because they're getting a slightly crappier processor and they're getting 8 gigs of RAM versus 12 on all the other standard, because 12 gigabytes of RAM is apparently standard across all of the Galaxy S20 phones. And if you want the ridiculous 16 gigabytes on the Ultra, I think you have to get the whatever the next storage option is. I think it's like either 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage. You basically have to get the bigger storage option if you want the 16 gigs of RAM. And then at that point, you're basically going to be spending like close to $2,000 on that phone. I mean, you could pretty much buy a used car for that kind of money. No, thank you. I'm not spending $2,000 on a tablet-sized phone that has 16 gigs of RAM and the ability to zoom in times 10. Yeah, like I said, though, the 12 gigabytes of RAM really does show on this phone. This phone honestly feels faster than my iPhone. Like, it's crazy fast. A lot of apps on my iPhone, they just, compared to opening the same apps on this phone, it's just, my iPhone feels slow. Like, the apps open slower, and stuff doesn't stay open in the background very much because the iPhone only has 4 gigs of RAM, which is pathetic. Like, I don't understand, like, to this day, why Apple is always cheaping out on how much RAM they put in their phones. At least have 8 gigs of RAM in the iPhone. Seriously, like, you're going to price your phones at $1,000 or more, and you're going to market it as premium flagship iPhones that have the latest and greatest that's currently out. Why do you only put 4 gigabytes of RAM in your phone? Like, the very least, have like 6 or 8. Like, 4 gigabytes of RAM, like, a lot of entry-level and mid-range phones have that much. Like, I've seen phones that you can get for $200 flat out that have 4 gigabytes of RAM. There's a lot of Motorola phones, like the Motorola G7. There's some other phones. There's like the Samsung Galaxy, like A30 or A40 or some of those kind of phones that have 4 gigabytes of RAM. You can get those kind of phones for like $200 to maybe $250, like, just flat out, and they have the same amount of RAM. It makes no sense why they keep cheaping out on the RAM. And you can really tell the difference, because this 12 gigabytes of RAM on this phone, it's a powerhouse. Like, I have deliberately tried to have like all like random apps close themselves out. I would be opening like literally 20, 30 different apps. I'd be opening like almost every app on my phone. And I would go back all the way back to the oldest app and see if it was still open. And every single app that I went back into was still open. Not a single app closed. It really, like, that 12 gigabytes of RAM is really is amazing, because like, apparently hardly any of the apps ever close anymore. And to compare it with the iPhone, I can hardly get anything to open. There's times where like I'll have maybe 3 or 4 things open, and the older ones will have to keep reopening themselves when I go into it. And it's like I'll have Maps open, and then I'll have the web browser open, and then I'll have like Instagram open or something like that. And then there are times where like I'll go to the internet for a little bit, and then I'll go back to like Instagram or something, and it'll have to reopen itself. And it's like I only have 3 or 4 things open. What the hell? Like, I paid $1,000. You're paying $1,000 for this phone, and I can't even keep more than a few apps open. It just keeps closing older apps. Like, that 4 gigabytes of RAM is really a joke. From my personal experience, 4 gigabytes of RAM, especially in a premium phone, it's not enough. Like, 8 gigabytes should be the standard on premium phones at this point. So knowing that the iPhones still only have 4 gigabytes of RAM, what the fuck? Like, catch up already, come on. Because like 12 gigabytes of RAM on this beast, it is like night and day. It is night and day having triple the amount of RAM. It's like I have to almost deliberately try to have older apps close themselves out. There are times where it's like, wow, this is still open. So I'll just start like jumping in and out of random apps. I'll just start like I'll just start spam opening a ton of random apps just to see if any of them are going to close. And the majority of the time they don't. I think so far, like I only remember like one app that was in the background that I went back into had to reopen itself. And that was because I was using the camera for a while, and I think I was using Snapchat a couple times. That's just, for some reason, when you use the camera, it just, I don't know, it just like flushes, it causes all the other apps to close, and it just tries to flush out the memory or something. I don't know why it does that, but whatever. Other than that, like, none of the apps will close, even if I like deliberately try to open everything to see, just for the hell of it to see. And nothing closes. Like, that, this phone is just such a powerhouse. It's at that point where it's practically like a damn desktop computer at this point. And especially with the whole Samsung DeX feature, where you can take a USB-C cable or whatever, or take an HDMI cable and just plug it into your phone like you'd normally do if you're charging it, and plug it into an external monitor or a TV. It has this whole entire dedicated desktop like interface, and you can connect it. You can even like connect the mouse to it and all that stuff, like a Bluetooth mouse, Bluetooth keyboard and all that. You can literally use this phone as a computer. I haven't really used that. I tried it, and I used the touch screen as the trackpad or whatever, just for the hell of it, because I've never used the DeX feature. But I'd probably use it more if I can get a Bluetooth. If I get a Bluetooth mouse, I'd probably use it a lot more. It's like it literally looks like a computer. It's kind of crazy. But I'm supposedly the iPhone 12 that's coming out later in the fall or whatever, assuming that there's no delays because of stupid faggot virus. But the iPhone 12 supposedly is going to have 6 gigs of RAM, which, I mean, like I said, I feel like at this point, flagship phones should have 8 gigs of RAM. That should be the standard at this point. 6 gigabytes of RAM seems like it would be like the bare minimum. But I really hope that at the very least, they put 6 gigabytes of RAM. I know they will. A lot of rumors and leaks and going around is saying that the iPhone 12, at the very least the Pro models, they're all going to have 6 gigabytes of RAM. So I feel like that'll be the bare minimum. Hopefully it'll make multitasking less irritating, because with my iPhone right now, my iPhone 11 Pro, sometimes it gets a little annoying. Like, most of the time apps stay open in the background. I don't really have that much of a problem, but it's just some apps close more than I would expect them to. Like, it makes me think when I'm only having a small amount of apps open, and then I go to one of the older ones and it has to reopen itself. When that happens, it makes me wonder, like, why did it close? And it makes me say that even more when I'm on my Galaxy S20 now with this ridiculous 12 gigabytes of RAM, and knowing that like literally nothing ever really closes at all on this thing. So now it makes me really think that 4 gigabytes of RAM on the iPhone is a total joke. It's such a big difference, just going from a phone that sometimes can't really keep much open in the background, and I go to a phone like this that can keep everything open in the background forever. And a thing that I really love about this, that is amazing, that I don't know how long this has been around, but I've been kind of wondering, like, hey, why don't they add this feature? Why don't they add this simple feature? Because it would be awesome just to have the ability to do it. But basically, it does have that feature. You can keep up to 3 apps permanently open in the background, no matter what it is. You can have 3 apps permanently open in the multitasking tray that will stay open forever, no matter what. No matter how much other crap is going on, no matter what you do, it'll force up to 3 apps of your choice to stay open in the background indefinitely. That is another amazing thing that I love about this phone. Like, the more I use this phone, the more I love all of the stuff that they just threw into this, all these features, all this stuff that you can do. It is amazing because you can have up to 3. So like right now I have 1 app that I decided to lock and have permanently open in the background, which is obviously the web browser, because I have a tab open that's basically coronavirus news, because I'm constantly looking at the latest and greatest coronavirus news, research, updates, all this bullshit, because I'm bored. I'm stuck. I've been stuck in my damn house, quarantined for several months. And keep in mind that I've been stuck in my house for several months before this outbreak even started, because a couple months ago, before I started, taking, the iron to help with my iron deficiency anemia, and I was on the gut medicine and all that, before I started getting on all that and getting better, I felt like such shit that I didn't even want to do anything anyway. I was starting to fear for my life at that point because of how crappy and exhausted I was all the time. So for like 2 or 3 months, I was already spending like 2 or 3 months stuck in my room, like hardly doing anything because of how crappy I was feeling for my gut problems. And now I finally start getting on, the right stuff to help me feel better, and I finally have energy and the will to do stuff. I don't feel like I'm gonna die anymore. So it's like literally right as I start getting better, this stupid virus just fucks the whole entire world, and apparently I have to continue to be stuck in my damn room doing nothing for the next several months. It's bullshit. So it just feels like prison at this point. Like, I've already been stuck in my room for several months before this. Now I'm stuck in my room for several more months. So for all those people that have only been quarantined for like a month or so, I mean, just try to imagine how I feel. I've been quarantined for like 5 straight fucking months. It's driving me crazy. Like, I couldn't take it anymore. Obviously, I had to get out, take my mini bike for a ride. And, this is one of the first times that I've actually gone out in probably a couple weeks, because I've been spending the past couple straight weeks so far literally like not even leaving my room other than to go to the bathroom. I'd work out in my room. I just dick off on RuneScape in my room or whatever I feel like doing. And I just feel like I am deteriorating. I don't understand how Greg lives like this, because this is essentially what Greg does. He just sits around the fucking house all damn day doing practically nothing. Just playing video games. Like, how do you live like that? It drives me insane. I've been doing this for the past couple straight weeks, and this is the first time since then that I've actually been able to go outside. Finally, I feel like a human being again. Like, how does any normal person live like that? No offense to Greg. Seriously, no offense to Greg. He's been my best friend since I was like 8 years old. But how do you have a lifestyle like that? How are you not chronically depressed? I can't handle it. This quarantine is just making me so bored out of my damn mind. And it's also making me fucking depressed, because like there's so much crap that I want to go out and do. And everything is closed. Everything is either closed or they close super early. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You can't socialize. You can't meet any people, because, everyone is getting sick. Everyone is just spreading this stupid disease around like it's the common cold pretty much. So it's not safe to go out and be around other people. So you have no choice but to stay inside, do nothing. And everyone is losing their jobs. Unemployment is through the roof. The economy is getting fucked. It just seems like a total nightmare.